Hello and welcome back to the channel after a long break, which I will explain in the upcoming video. But for now, I wanted to show you how you could build an async model that you could present for your users whenever they, for example, try to delete or edit something or perform some kind of action that requires acceptation or cancellation. And what we'll do, it will build this asynchronous model that actually returns a promise. And if you think about it, this is kind of smart because awaiting for the user response whenever they are presented with a model and some kind of choice is actually promise like action, because you should get a value, like for example some kind of cancellation or confirmation value, but you don't know when the user will click the button. And in that case, it's kind of similar to performing an asynchronous request, because we're requesting not the data from the API, but rather from our user to press a button. And as you can see here, we have three simple cards here, the name of the games, and I can request to delete the game. And this will present this simple pop-up, and our user can confirm or cancel this one. And I didn't really bother with styling because how it works is actually pretty interesting and more important. So let's get started, and I will show you how to create something like this. Okay, so this is the standard stack blitz with the setup with React and TypeScript. Pretty much the same I would use to run the project from disk. This is just for convenience, right? So if you go to stack blitz and you create an account, you can just create React TypeScript as a template from here, and this is where we are right now. So let's start by adding some packages that we will need. And thankfully, there's only one I'm going to add. This is types styled components as a styling solution. And of course, styled components. Okay, let's start by defining our data. Missing dependencies, yes, of course, let's add these. So let's start by defining some simple data we can work with. So I'm going to create game titles array. It's going to be escape from Tarkov. What's popular right now? COD, Modern Warfare 2, and maybe God of War, Ragnarok. Okay, that's that. So let's push those to our state. So I'm gonna replace that with the import of our hook, and we can just do const use state, and we're gonna use game titles as a state since we like to remove from that and re-render our UI. So we're gonna use games and set games. Okay, and with that, React is not defined. Okay, it has to be in the scope, I assume. Okay, let's do that. Then this is not good. Okay, cool. So let's just do React use state, and now we have no red squiggly lines. So what I'm gonna start with is actually I'm gonna create a wrapper for all of our cards. So let's create new file. Let's create app styles ts. I'm gonna simply import from styled components and export const a simple wrapper. And we're gonna of course use flex, because why not? Let's display flex wrap just in case, and I'm gonna use a gap of 8 pixels. Okay, next thing we have to do is to create our game card, which we'll use to present each and single game. Let's create game card tsx and move it to that folder. And also here, let's create game card styles just to add some styling. Okay, so this is going to be rather simple and pretty standard. So let's import React, and I'm gonna define the props. So that's gonna be title of our game, which is gonna be string, and then callback to call whenever someone clicks on delete button. This is just the setup. So let's create the game card. Let's unpack the props, and I'm gonna do title, and on delete, and I don't know why okay, now it's fine. I didn't know why is it shouting at me. Actually, we could do just that because we don't need any logic there. And here I'm gonna use styling. So let's create a wrapper for our game card. So again, import style from style components and export const game card wrapper. That's gonna have the style div, the div here. Cool. Gonna add the padding of 8 pixels. Gonna do display flex because that's pretty much standard. Let's do some background color, nice and gray. Flex direction, we're gonna set it up vertically, so column, and we're gonna have a gap of 16 pixels between elements. That's done. We can get back to coding our card. So I'm gonna import styles, and I pretty much always do it like this, as S from not side components. We have to import from game card styles, and yep, that should be fine. So we create our wrapper, nothing fancy here. Let me close that. Okay, and here we will just render the title and add the button to perform the click. So that's gonna be like delete game button, and on click we will we'll use the title as the identifier. Normally you'd have some kind of ID from the database or something like that from some API, right? But since we're not doing that, we're gonna just use the title as the identifier. And that's pretty much it. We just have to export default game card. And with that done, we can render our stuff on the screen in app. So let's get rid of that. I'm gonna import the wrapper for our app as S from app styles. That's good. This is gonna be our wrapper. And inside, we'll just map across our game titles. Right, and that's gonna allow us to render our game card and use the title and pass it here, and we have that here. And if you, whenever you're importing and creating your folder structure and you get hit by this game card because import, which is not looking very nice, right? Because we have this repeated. maybe it would be better to have something like that. You can just create index file. So that's gonna be index.ts file. We're gonna export default from GameCard tsx. Oh, don't do that. Okay. And then probably maybe we could do just that. Yeah, looks like it is working. And for now, let's create some kind of dummy callback on the lead that's going to take the title of a string. Okay, and we can pass that here on the lead. Fine. One thing we're missing, of course, is a key. You would again pass some kind of ID, but since we don't have one, that's gonna be enough for that case. Okay, so nothing is really happening here because what we didn't do is we did not create our model yet. So let's start by creating another folder. I'm going to just call this model and we can work from there. So I'm going to split it in 3 parts actually. We're gonna create a model base that you can use as a base for every model that you can build. Then we'll create the functionality of our model being asynchronous, meaning you can show it from a function and expect it to return a value. And then we'll just create a simple inner content of the model as a confirmation model. So let's start with the base. I'm going to create model base tsx, and then I'm going to add the styling, of course. So model base styles.ts. Okay, that's kind of cool. One thing we might want to add is another node to our index.html. This is the root element to which the React app is being mounted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another ID as a root for our model. So I'm going to just name it model root. Okay. So here is the app being mounted and here is the model being mounted because our model is kind of outside of hierarchy of our app. It's being presented in front of a user, in front for a user, in front of our app, right? So we'll mount it in a different HTML node. So let's start hacking away. I'm gonna, of course, import as React from React. Okay. We can then create the base, so model base, right? And just this is the blueprint for every single React component. Okay, and with that done, we will need some children. So interface props children, and we can type it as React node, and that's gonna be fine. And we're gonna have some onHide function that we call whenever our wonderful model is being hidden. So let's start hacking away. Gonna unpack props here. So children and onHide, of course. Just wrap everything in a div, right? And here we're gonna do our styling. So import style from site components, and all the styling we need. So first thing we need is the backdrop, which is gonna be like the background of our wonderful model, that semi-transparent background that you see that makes the model really pop up. So let's start with that. So I'm gonna call this modal backdrop, and this is gonna be style div. I'm gonna say the display should be initial, position should be fixed, but the width is 100%, the height is 100%, top 0, left 0, and to make it transparent, just do RGBA 0.3, and that's our backdrop. So let's put it right here. Oh, we have to import that, of course. Import as S from modal base styles. Okay, cool. And this is modal backdrop. Auto close that. So now we have to create some wrappers, right? So we're gonna need the outer wrapper and the inner wrapper. So that's gonna go like this. Modal outer wrapper, and that's gonna position our model in the center of the screen. So we're going to position fixed, top 50%, left 50%, yes. Transform, translate, -50, -50. Width, we're gonna inherit. Height, set to initial. Okay, and then we need the inner wrapper. And that's also gonna be style div. So let's set the background to white, I believe. Height, set it to 100%. Display flex direction is gonna be column. Border radius 12 pixels. Okay, we're also gonna create a close button, and that's like additional stuff. I'm gonna show you how you could create that in what? In CSS. Okay, so you don't really need SVG or PNG for that. Of course, SVG would work nicely, but hey, we're programmers, we're not designers. So position is going to be absolute, right, top 32 pixels, width 42 pixels, height 42 pixels, border none, cursor should turn into pointer. Okay, and now for the X itself, I'll do and before and after to create the simple line. That's a position absolute, left, I believe that's going to be 15 pixels. We have to provide the content to make it appear on the screen. Height 32 pixels, width 2 pixels, background color dark gray. And then we have to, of course, rotate the before and after with a proper degree value. So before transform rotate 45 degrees, and after transform rotate minus 45 degrees. Okay, let's see if that actually works. Rather, we're not gonna see it yet because we don't have a, this is just a base of a model. It should work, I hope. So we need the outer wrapper and close it. This, then the inner, and close this. Then we're gonna need the close button. So close button, stop and closing, and let's say on click. It's gonna be on height, and then inside just render the children. Okay, and we have our model base, and we're gonna use it. We're gonna use it inside of our asynchronous model. Okay, and that's actually gonna be the most interesting part of what we're doing here. So let's do that. I'm gonna create async modal tsx. So this is actually really interesting because we'd like to call for a render of some React component from a function and make it appear on the screen. And also we have to manage removing of that component from the screen. Okay, so let's try and figure that out. Definitely, I'm gonna create some kind of async modal object that's gonna hold a function, and actually I could just make that as a function, but I think that's gonna be more readable. And here we're gonna have the arguments passed to the function. So we have to think what kind of props we'd like to have this. Have here, sorry. So definitely I would like to have some kind of children here, but these children have to be very specific because they have to adhere to the promise-like interface. Okay, so that's gonna be React, and of course let's import React because we'll be using that as React from React. Okay, so that's gonna be React element, and if you hover over this, you will see that this is generic, so we have a chance to decide what kind of children we can pass here. So definitely, since we like to have it as a promise, we have to have it accept the resolve, or maybe let's make it optional. And the value it's going to accept is going to be t and k. So let's make it generic here. T or k or promise like t and promise like k. Okay, so this is actually good, and then gonna return void, of course. Then we have to have a call for a hide function. This is still inside React element, right? And then we would like to have an option to provide well, you know what? Actually, let's simplify this for now. We're gonna just make it accept the function, and then we're gonna make it more complex. Okay, so actually, these are not props. This is not a component per se. I'm going to just call these open arcs. And these are the children from the open arcs. And here we have to make that function accept generic arguments. And then I can pass them here. So now everything is correct. Okay, so what would you like to do here actually is, of course, return a promise, right? And this is gonna accept, let's stick with T for now. And I know that you're gonna scream at me, so I can do it like this and then remove that. Okay, so we have a new promise dependent on type D. Oh, here first, it should be here, right? And we're gonna get some kind of result function, right? The one we can call whenever the user clicks on the button, which should resolve the promise. So we have to have a way to actually render our wonderful React component into something. So I'm gonna create a root here, and this is gonna be our reference to a root. And whenever we call the async modal open function, I'm gonna just check whether we have a root, right? And if we don't have one, we should create a root and just assign it. So that's gonna be create root from React DOM client package, and we should point it to our modal root. So I can just do async modal root document get element by ID modal root. And as you remember, we defined it in the index HTML, so that should be all good. It also make it, well, we don't have to worry about that, but let's worry about rendering something to the screen. So I can just call root render, and this is of type any, which is okay. Well, this is fine. And then I can just create portal here and stick everything I need to render on the screen right here. So create the root, call the root render, and then we create a portal to render our wonderful model. So I'm gonna call for a model base. Yep. And close it up here. And here we just can just pass the children, right? And what is missing? Oh, we have to specify the async modal root here. This is fine. Modal base cannot be used as JSX component. Of course it cannot be used. Right. If we use the wrong parenthesis, then definitely. Okay, that should handle that issue. Next one is property on height is missing. So basically what we should do here is call for some function. So let's create that. Let's call this hide. Let's do this for now. This is going to be pretty basic. On hide, let's call it hide. What else do you need? Let's see. An argument for container was not provided. Yeah, it was not provided because actually we have to provide it here, and now we should be good. Okay, so how can we use this? Let's first export that. And let's make it appear on the screen. So on delete, right? I'm gonna just do, just turn it to async. Then I'm gonna call await async modal open, and I can pass children here, and that's gonna be modal content, right? So let's see if that works. Actually, it doesn't. Okay, so it seems something just didn't refresh. So now if I click on our wonderful delete game, you can see something pops up. Well, it's not perfect, but we're gonna fix it, right? So let's start by how do we actually hide our our model when we're pressing on the X button. So here I'm gonna just call root unmount, and then I'm gonna set the root to null. Okay, check that, and here we have our working model that we can call from our beautiful function here, and it will dynamically render, add and remove JSX to our app, which is great. But we have to go deeper, of course. So let's start by creating our confirmation model. So I'm going to just create confirmation model TSX and confirmation model style .ts. Okay. So we have to import React to the standard stuff. Okay, that's kind of cool. And define the confirmation model and do the export default. And with that, then we can try to think about the props we would like to have pass here. Okay, so definitely the text to display seems to be in place, right? What to display in the model. And now we have to start thinking a little bit, right? Because basically what I would like to do is to display two buttons, something like OK and cancel. And I would like to have the promise from here being resolved whenever someone clicks these buttons, right? Probably with some kind of values, right? So for example, the true value for accept and false value for cancel. But maybe that's not the only case. Maybe, for example, whenever someone clicks OK, we should return some kind of number or an object or anything else. And the same goes, of course, for the cancel scenario. So I have to define here. Oops. Yeah, of course, it should be here. I should define the values to return, right? So some kind of confirm value, type T, and then cancel value of type K, for example. And I'm just going to make that generic, right? And then we have to think, we definitely have to have some kind of function to hide our model, because it doesn't matter whether you click OK or cancel, you like to hide the model. So that's cool. And then I would like to have our result function passed here, right? And the value can be either T or K or promise like T or promise like K, right? Because we're not sure which value should we pass. That depends to resolve. That depends on the button which user clicks, right? And that should, of course, return void. So knowing of that, I can use these props here. Okay, I have to make my whole component generic in that case, and just return some base X. So let's go to our styles and define the styles very quickly. There's just gonna be a lot here. Styled from styled components, export const content wrapper styled div, and we have to specify the display and set it to flex. We have to use the flex direction and set the column. I'm gonna add some padding, that's 2 pixels, 100 pixels, and 48 pixels. And I have this nice color. It's gonna be E0 PDF3, and I believe this is some kind of pink or violet. I'm gonna define the title, and this is going to be a styled H2. All I want here is a little bit of margin. And then I'm gonna define the button wrapper. That's gonna be a div with min width of 300 pixels, display of flex, and gap of 16 pixels. Okay, we can work with that. So let's go back to our confirmation model and let's define stuff that we'd like to have here. So of course the S, it's not gonna be from here, but rather confirmation model. So S, that's gonna be, I exported these. So that's gonna be content wrapper, I believe. Oh, no closing text. Oh, yes, of course. Okay, so that's our content wrapper. Confirmation model. styles, because otherwise we would just be stuck in a loop, right? Okay, as title, and that's gonna be the text to display. So let's get all the things that we need here. So text to display, close this. Okay, and below we have button wrapper, close this, and here we'll define our buttons. So first button, gonna say confirm. Confirm. I don't know. Confirm, probably. And on, oops, on, come on click. So here I would like to resolve with the confirm value, which is pretty simple, and I can pass this because that function is accepting the type of confirm value. Like you can see that these types are matching, right? And of course, whenever I do this, I have to call hide. You can probably already tell what is going to happen in the cancel. I'm just gonna use cancel value here. And yeah, basically that's that. So let's see how we can actually use that in our beautiful, wonderful asynchronous model. So this should be the child that we pass to async modal, which is then being passed, right? This is going to be passed to model base. So I can just say confirmation model and pass the stuff that we need. So text to display, this is going to be something like, do you really want to delete that? Okay, let's see, what else do we need here? This should be self-closing. We would like to pass the cancel value, and in that case, I'm going to just make it accept. That should be Boolean and Boolean, because both it should be Boolean, right? So that's going to be false, and then confirm value should be true, which is the most obvious case. The problem now is that we are expected to pass, hide, and resolve functions, and these actually live in our async model, right? Here's the resolve and here's the hide. So one simple thing that we could do to elevate that is just to make this optional, and then in async model we have to pass those to our children, and we have to do a nice simple trick to actually be able to pass a props to our children here. And I assume you probably know what it is. This is simple call for React clone element, and we're cloning children, and to those children we can pass the props, which are resolve and hide. Okay, and it's all fine now. One thing we should do is change that thing, right? Because whenever we close the button and click on the close button in our model, we pretty much treat that scenario as a cancel scenario. So I'm going to create another function here for it on close button clicked. Right, and what we have to do is call for a hide, then pass additional on hide here as a function. So maybe you'd like to do something additional whenever we hide the model. So we can use that here and then pass that here. Right, and property on hide is missing. It is not missing, my friend. Oh, not here. First, we're passing that here. And of course, this is not a prop. This is an object. Okay. Now we're good. Okay, what else do we need? Well, basically, we would need some kind of way to pass the cancel value into our async model. And basically, we could do one of two things here. We could copy this. So going back to our async model, then that calls for cancel value, which would be of type K. Right, so that and that and that. So here we have to resolve with the value of, the value of cancel value. Okay, cool. Pass it here. But now, as you can see, our resolve value does not conform to what we need. So we have to extend that. So that's basically same as in confirmation modal, promise like okay, okay. And I don't know why it's not updating. Resolve, oh yeah, because to update that too. And that's gonna be actually TRK. Okay. And now our types are set up properly. The one thing that is maybe not so nice right now is that we are actually boolean. Let's just do boolean, and maybe then we don't have to pass that here. Yep. So right now we have everything set up. One thing that bothers me a little bit is that I have to pass the cancel value here and pass it here to make it work, right? So maybe what we could do instead is go to confirmation model, make the cancel value be optional, and then we don't have to pass it. Oops, sorry. Yep, we can make that optional and we don't have to pass it here, right? But what we have to do to make it work is to go back to our async model and also clone that prop. So there's going to be a cancel value. So value. And this is not working because class overload is here. No quick fixes. Height is not partial resolve height and attributes. Oh, of course, to make it work, I have to add it to the props. It'll be cancel value type K. Right, right, okay. And then I don't have to pass a cancel value there 2 times because actually being cloned. Okay, so let's start by seeing the value. Just maybe result, or maybe call it confirmation result to make it really obvious. And let's console log that confirmation result, and let us check where this works. Just reload this. Okay, well, it does not show in the perfect place, as you can tell. So let's see what's the problem. This seems to be defined incorrectly, the transform. So we have a bug there. Transform, translate, minus 50%. Transform. Okay, now we're good. Hey, it's not perfect, but as you can see, if I click confirm, I get the true here. And if I click cancel, I get false here. What is actually cool is that we made it as generic as possible, right? So basically what I can do is change that to number and that to string. And then the cancellation value has to be of type string. So user clicked cancel. And I don't know why is this still accepting Boolean, but like, for example, pass 16 here and reload again. And if I click confirm, I get 16, right? And if I click cancel, I get user clicked cancel. And I could make very specific check here before moving forward. For example, you could present many buttons for user with values like 1, 2, 3 and perform different actions based on what user clicked, right? So confirmation result, and here, for example, the result is correct, perform API call. Okay, and let's reload this because it tends to hang, right? So this is basically how you can create a model. So we split it up in 3 parts. There's a base model. There's a model base that you can use to create any model. Then we have the confirmation itself, the content of the model. Then the async functionality is being created here. And the big magic is using the root render and createPortal and pointing to the different root. Then our app is mounted. And then just unmounting stuff and resetting the root whenever you perform the hide operation. Right? And with that being generic enough, you can extend it and make it suit your needs. So thank you for that. And I'm gonna see you in the next one. Take care and goodbye.